The words hit like a physical blow, making my hand tighten around the phone until my knuckles turned white. Your daughter doesn't exist to us. My father's voice, cold, dismissive, sliced through the lingering birthday cheer in our apartment. Behind me, paper lanterns still swayed from the ceiling, casting dancing shadows across Maya's discarded party hat and the birthday cake with 6 flickering candles she'd blown out hours earlier. My entire body went rigid as I stared at the empty doorway where my daughter had stood all evening, periodically checking for grandparents who never came. The phone slipped from my grasp, landing with a dull thud on the carpet as my father hung up without another word. My name is Nicholas. I'm 34 and a single father. This is the story of how I freed my daughter from the shadow of rejection. For 9 straight months, I'd sent $600 every Friday to my parents, Victoria and Raymond. No questions asked. Their mortgage, gourmet takeout, streaming subscriptions, I covered it all while watching my own bank balance dwindle. Dreams of a better school for Maya or weekend trips to the lake evaporated with each transfer. I told myself it was temporary. They'd hit hard times, lost their savings. I was their son. I had to help. But their treatment of Maya was something else entirely. From the day I brought her home, a tiny bundle wrapped in a pale pink blanket, they behaved as though she were invisible. Victoria would hold her awkwardly, eyes fixed on some distant point, while Raymond barely acknowledged her existence. She reminds me too much of her mother, he'd mutter, referencing my ex who disappeared before Maya's first birthday. I'd foolishly believed love would eventually crack their shell. That time would soften their hearts. Instead, their indifference calcified into something darker, more deliberate. Maya's world became our cramped balcony where she chased soap bubbles in scuffed boots, her laughter a counterpoint to the guilt gnawing at me. 6 years old, all curiosity and wild energy with a heart too big for the rejection she sensed but couldn't understand. I'd watch her playing, my chest tight with the knowledge that I was sacrificing her security to support people who wouldn't even glance her way. Every Thursday, I ordered their groceries, artisanal cheeses, craft coffee, tech gadgets they'd flaunt online with captions like "Life's good." Meanwhile, I was skipping lunch to afford Maya's winter coat. The tension wasn't in arguments but in silences, Victoria's brittle tone when I suggested they visit, Raymond's emails always ending with "could use a bit more this month." Their indifference accumulated like frost on glass. Yet I persisted, clinging to the hope that someday they'd see her, really see her. Then came Maya's 6th birthday. She wore a yellow sundress, her ponytail bobbing as she twirled around our small apartment. I'd spent hours stringing paper lanterns across the ceiling, balancing precariously on chairs to create something magical in our modest space. Throughout the afternoon, as neighborhood kids arrived with wrapped presents, Maya kept glancing toward the door, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Are Nana and Papa coming?" she asked, voice soft as a whisper. "Maybe, kiddo," I replied, though I knew I'd emailed the invitation 2 weeks earlier and received nothing but silence in return. The party proceeded in a chaotic blur of children's laughter and games. A neighbor helped serve lemonade while another supervised the treasure hunt I'd organized. But Maya's gaze kept returning to the door, hope dimming with each passing hour. By nightfall, when the last guest had departed, she sat on the steps leading to our apartment, dress smudged with chocolate icing. "They didn't come," she whispered, not a question but a realization. I knelt beside her, promising hot cocoa and a story before bed, but my voice betrayed me, cracking on the final syllable. That night, after tucking her in, I sat alone on the couch, scrolling to the email Victoria had sent that morning. "Happy birthday to Maya from us." No call. No visit. Just 5 words, sterile as hospital corridors. That's when I made the call, the one that changed everything. Raymond answered on the 4th ring, irritation evident in his tone, as though I'd interrupted something important. "Why didn't you come today?" I asked, voice barely audible. The pause stretched like a wire about to snap. Then his response, "Your daughter doesn't exist to us." The call disconnected, leaving me in stunned silence. My hands trembled as I opened my banking app and with one decisive swipe, cancelled every recurring payment. Every dollar I'd bled for them, gone. But that wasn't the end. An hour later, my phone chimed with an email from Victoria. "Can you send us some takeout? Pantry's bare." I laughed, a hollow, jagged sound. They hadn't even noticed I'd pulled the plug. 3 days passed before Victoria contacted me again, her tone syrupy as though nothing had happened. "Where's the cash, sweetheart?" When I told her it was over, no more money, no more anything, she chuckled, dismissing my resolve as temporary. "You'll be back," she said. "You always are." I wasn't. By Tuesday, their property manager called, his voice cautious. "Mortgage payment is late. You've always been reliable, so I thought." "Deal with them," I interrupted. "I'm done." The silence on his end suggested he understood the finality in my voice. That evening, Victoria's email arrived, accusatory. "You're leaving us to starve? Real nice." I blocked her address, but they found other ways through, an Instagram DM from an old account I'd overlooked. A venomous message calling Maya a problem and claiming they'd been guilted by my single dad act. They insisted they'd never wanted her in their lives, as though she were a debt they refused to acknowledge. My stomach churned as I dialed my brother Owen, who lived in Portland with his partner. I explained everything: the birthday, Raymond's words, the relentless emails. Owen went silent before confessing, "I've been sending them money too." My breath caught. He'd been covering their internet bill and gas expenses, also hoping it would somehow make them embrace Maya. "They won't," he said, voice heavy with resignation. "They never will." The next morning, Victoria called from an unfamiliar number, her voice shrill with panic. Owen had contacted them, declaring he was cutting financial ties as well. "You turned him against us," she shrieked. "You ruined everything." I ended the call, hands shaking, chest burning with a mixture of anger and long-suppressed grief. Owen didn't stop there. He sent screenshots of their messages to our extended family, cousins, our uncle, even Victoria's book club friends. He exposed how they'd erased Maya from their lives while draining us financially. The family group chat exploded as relatives who'd remained silent for years began questioning their behavior. A cousin commented beneath Raymond's latest social media post, "You don't deserve that little girl." Their grip on the family narrative was slipping. Calls to Owen went unanswered. They appeared uninvited at his partner's parents' house, desperate and disheveled in the security footage he forwarded to me. A week later, my cousin Natalie messaged, "Have you seen their video?" I hadn't. Opening Instagram, I found a 15-minute livestream titled "The Truth About Our Ungrateful Son." Victoria sat on their cluttered sofa, mascara streaking down her cheeks, while Raymond held up a photo from Maya's birthday, her face radiant beneath a paper lantern. "This child isn't our family," Raymond stated flatly. Victoria joined in, claiming I'd forced money on them and was using Maya to manipulate everyone. Their lies flowed so smoothly it felt like watching strangers inhabit my parents' bodies. Comments flooded in. Some old acquaintances accepted their version, but most saw through the deception. "This is deranged," one wrote. "Seek help," advised another. The fallout was swift and comprehensive. Their property manager, having viewed the video, terminated their mortgage arrangement. A grocery store employee called to report that Victoria had caused a scene when her card was declined, an incident someone recorded and linked to their online rant. Their social circle contracted as former friends distanced themselves. The world they'd constructed was collapsing, demolished by their own hands. The final blow came from Great-Aunt Judith. At 82, she spoke with the authority of someone who had witnessed decades of family history. She composed a letter, mailing copies to every relative, quoting their video verbatim before delivering her verdict. "You disown a child, you're no longer family." Victoria forwarded me a photograph of the letter, crumpled, stained with tears, accompanied by 4 words, "Hope you're satisfied." I wasn't satisfied. I was free. 1 month later, I knelt in the snow outside a lawyer's office, signing paperwork for a formal no-contact order while Maya colored quietly beside me, unaware of the document's significance. As I watched her trace purple swirls across white paper, I realized we were finally building something new, a life surrounded by family who truly saw her. My parents chose control over love, pride over connection. Now they remain alone, their deception exposed, their relationships reduced to ashes. I don't hate them. I don't even miss them. I simply wonder, could they have loved her if they tried? If you were me, would you forgive them?